The morning sun cast long shadows across the United Nations building, as representatives from every nation on Earth gathered for the most important meeting in human history. Outside, crowds pressed against barriers, their faces turned skyward where three massive ships hung motionless in the clouds. The ships were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly, their surfaces seeming to shift between silver and gold in the sunlight. Dr. Marcus Webb adjusted his tie nervously as he walked through the security checkpoint. As Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien biology, he had been chosen to help evaluate any new species humanity might encounter. He never imagined that day would come so soon. The aliens had arrived exactly 72 hours ago. Their first message, broadcast simultaneously in every human language, had been simple and reassuring. They came in peace. They represented something called the Galactic Council. They wanted to welcome humanity to the greater community of intelligent life. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at attention near the main podium, her uniform crisp despite having worked for 3 straight days coordinating Earth's response. She had seen the military reports. These beings possessed technology that made human weapons look like stone tools. If they wanted to destroy Earth, they could do it without effort. The fact that they came talking instead of shooting was the only reason anyone could sleep at night. The main doors opened with a soft hiss. The alien delegation entered the assembly hall, and every human in the room held their breath. They were tall, nearly 8 feet in height, with smooth scales that shifted color from deep green to blue as they moved. Their faces were elongated, almost serpentine, but their eyes held an intelligence that was unmistakably civilized. They moved with fluid grace, their robes flowing around them like water. The lead alien stepped forward and bowed slightly. When he spoke, his voice carried easily through the hall without amplification. "I am Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire," he said, his English perfect despite the slight hiss that accompanied certain sounds. "We speak for the Galactic Council, a union of 437 intelligent species working together for peace and prosperity across the stars." The Secretary General of the United Nations stepped forward, visibly fighting to keep his voice steady. "On behalf of all humanity, we welcome you to Earth. We are honored by your presence." Vextar's eyes gleamed with what humans interpreted as kindness. "The honor is ours. We have watched your species from afar, impressed by your rapid development and your potential for greatness. You have achieved spaceflight, split the atom, and connected your entire world through digital networks in mere centuries. Most species take thousands of years to reach such milestones." Dr. Webb leaned forward in his seat, studying the alien's body language. Something felt rehearsed about the presentation, too smooth and practiced. But then again, perhaps that was simply the result of making first contact with hundreds of species over the millennia. "We offer humanity membership in the Galactic Council," Vextar continued. "With membership comes access to technologies that will transform your civilization. Faster than light travel, clean unlimited energy, medical advances that will extend your lives by centuries. We offer trade partnerships, cultural exchange, and protection under the Civilized Species Accord." The hall erupted in excited murmurs. Admiral Chen felt her heart racing. The possibilities were endless. Humanity could expand to the stars within decades instead of centuries. "What do you ask in return?" the Secretary General inquired. "Very little," Vextar replied with what appeared to be a smile. "Simply that you follow council law in your dealings with other species, that you contribute to the common defense when needed, that you share in the responsibilities of maintaining peace and order in this galaxy." Dr. Webb raised his hand. "Might I ask about these other species? Are there others like us, relatively new to galactic civilization?" "Oh yes," Vextar's eyes brightened. "Many species join the Council as young civilizations and thrive under our guidance. The Corvani discovered warp drive only 200 years ago, and now manage 17 star systems. The Deltari were once confined to a single ocean world and now command mighty fleets. We help all our member species reach their full potential." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "You mentioned contributing to common defense. What threats exist in the galaxy?" "Sadly, not all species embrace civilization," Vextar explained, his tone growing somber. "There are aggressive races that reject cooperation, that prefer conquest and destruction. The Council sometimes must take military action to protect peaceful worlds. We would never ask humanity to fight alone, of course. Council fleets work together, with each species contributing their unique strengths. The questions continued for hours. The Zephyrians answered everything with patience and apparent honesty. They showed holographic displays of council worlds, magnificent cities floating in space, vast fleets of ships traveling between stars. They offered tours of their vessels, demonstrations of their technology. When the formal session ended, smaller groups formed around the aliens. Scientists peppered them with technical questions. Military officers discussed defensive strategies. Politicians debated the legal framework of joining an interstellar government. Dr. Webb found himself in conversation with one of the younger Zephyrians, who called himself Sectar. "Your species fascinates us," Sectar said. "Most races we encounter are highly specialized. Some excel at mathematics, others at engineering, still others at warfare. But humans seem remarkably adaptable. You have individuals who excel in multiple fields." "We've always been generalists," Webb replied. "Adaptation helped us survive on Earth before we developed technology. Yes, we studied your evolutionary history. Quite remarkable how you spread across your entire planet, adapting to every environment. Most species remain in their original ecological niche for millions of years." Something in the alien's tone caught Webb's attention. "You've been studying us for a long time?" "Oh, the Council monitors all developing species," Sectar said quickly. "We must ensure they pose no threat to galactic peace before making contact. Standard procedure." Admiral Chen joined their conversation. "I'm curious about your military structure. How do joint operations work when you have so many different species?" "Each species contributes what they do best," Sectar explained. "The Corvani excel at ship construction. The Deltari are magnificent pilots. The Thorgan provide tactical planning. Everyone has their role." "And what role do you see for humanity?" Chen asked. The young Zephyrian hesitated for just a moment. "Your adaptability would be valuable in many situations. Ground operations, perhaps. Your species seems well suited for challenging environments." Webb noticed the pause, the careful choice of words, but before he could probe further, Chancellor Vextar approached their group. "Admiral Chen, Dr. Webb, I hope you found our discussions enlightening," the Chancellor said. "We would be honored to show you our flagship tomorrow. Perhaps you could see firsthand the benefits of joining our great alliance." "We'd be delighted," Chen replied, "though I should mention, any military cooperation would need approval from our respective governments." "Of course," Vextar agreed. "We respect human sovereignty completely. The Council never forces membership or participation. Everything must be voluntary, freely chosen." As the day ended and the aliens returned to their ships, Webb stood on the building's observation deck watching the massive vessels disappear into the clouds. Something nagged at him, a feeling he couldn't quite identify. Admiral Chen joined him at the railing. "Incredible day," she said. "Humanity is about to join a galactic civilization. Our children will grow up traveling between stars." "Yes," Webb agreed. "It's everything we've dreamed of." "You sound uncertain." Webb was quiet for a long moment. "Did you notice how they kept mentioning these aggressive species that reject Council authority? And how they emphasized humanity's adaptability for ground operations and challenging environments? You think they want us as soldiers?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just being paranoid." Webb shook his head. "It's probably nothing. This is the greatest opportunity in human history. We'd be fools not to take it." Above them, the alien ships hung in the sky like harbingers of a new age, their hulls gleaming in the fading sunlight. In a few hours, they would begin humanity's journey to the stars. Neither Webb nor Chen could have imagined where that journey would ultimately lead. 50 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council, and Admiral Sarah Chen barely recognized the species she had once been so proud to represent. Her daughter, Captain Lisa Chen, stood before her in the gleaming uniform of the Council Peace Corps, ready to depart on another liberation mission. "The Kithara system refuses to accept Council protection," Lisa explained, reviewing her mission briefing. "They've declared their independence and are harboring refugees from other conflicts. Intelligence suggests they're building weapons to threaten nearby trade routes." Sarah studied the tactical display floating between them. The Kithara system showed as a red dot surrounded by the green glow of Council space. It looked so small, so isolated. "How many ships are you taking?" 47 vessels from 6 different species. The humans will lead ground operations once orbital defenses are neutralized." Lisa's voice carried the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. Human forces had proven remarkably effective at what the Council euphemistically called conflict resolution. Dr. Marcus Webb entered the briefing room, his hair now silver with age, but his eyes still sharp. As humanity's senior xenobiologist, he served as an advisor on missions involving unknown species. "I've been reviewing the files on the Kythera," he said, setting down a datapad. "Something doesn't add up." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "According to Council records, the Kythera contacted us requesting membership 18 months ago, but now they're listed as hostiles who refuse protection." Webb pulled up historical data. "I've been tracking patterns like this for years. Species that suddenly change from cooperative to hostile, always right before they're invaded." Lisa frowned. "Are you suggesting the intelligence is wrong?" "I'm suggesting we might not be getting the whole story." Webb had been saying things like this more often lately, ever since he started his private research project. "I've identified 43 species that followed the exact same pattern: peaceful contact, membership negotiations, then sudden hostility requiring military intervention." Sarah felt a familiar knot in her stomach. "Marcus, we've been through this before. Some species simply can't adapt to galactic civilization. The Council has procedures for dealing with aggressive behavior." "Do we?" Webb pulled up another file. "I managed to access some of the older archives. The Veltari were described as peaceful philosophers when they first made contact. 6 months later, they were listed as violent expansionists who had to be stopped. Their entire civilization was wiped out in the resulting conflict." "The Veltari attacked 3 Council worlds," Lisa said, repeating what every human officer had been taught. "They gave us no choice." "According to Council records, yes. But I found some independent sources, refugee testimonies buried in the archives. The Veltari claimed the Council attacked them first, that the whole thing was a setup." The room fell silent. Sarah had heard whispers of such claims before, but they were always dismissed as propaganda from defeated enemies. The Council had saved humanity from isolation and ignorance. They had given humans the stars. "Even if that were true," Sarah said carefully, "what would you have us do? Refuse orders? Abandon our responsibilities to the Council?" "I'm asking us to investigate before we act," Webb replied. "These Kythera might not be the aggressors we think they are." Lisa checked her chronometer. "With respect, Dr. Webb, I have my orders. The fleet departs in 6 hours." She turned to her mother. "The Council has been good to humanity. We owe them our loyalty." After Lisa left, Sarah and Webb stood alone in the briefing room. The tactical display still glowed between them, showing the tiny Kythera system marked for destruction. "She's right, you know," Sarah said. "The Council gave us everything. Faster than light travel, unlimited energy, extended lifespans. Human colonies now span 47 star systems, all of them on worlds that were conveniently uninhabited," Webb pointed out, "or whose previous inhabitants had mysteriously vanished." "Marcus, you're starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist." "Maybe I am. Or maybe I'm the only one asking the right questions." Webb pulled up a star chart showing human settlements. "Look at the pattern. Every world we've been given to colonize was previously inhabited by species that were defeated in Council military actions. We're not exploring new frontiers, Sarah. We're moving into graveyards." The next morning, Lisa's fleet departed for the Kythera system. Sarah watched from the observation deck of the orbital station as 47 ships activated their warp drives and disappeared into streaks of light. Her daughter was aboard the flagship, leading humanity's finest soldiers on another mission of conquest disguised as peacekeeping. Webb joined her at the viewing window. "I've been doing more research," he said quietly. "I found records of a species called the Ethereals. They were one of the Council's founding members, supposedly extinct for thousands of years, but there are hints that survivors might still exist." "What kind of hints?" "Energy signatures that don't match any known technology. Transmissions and frequencies that Council science says are impossible to use for communication, and reports from some of our more recent conflicts mention strange phenomena that can't be explained." Sarah turned away from the window. "Even if you're right, what can we do? Humanity is integrated into the Council structure. Our economy depends on galactic trade. Our colonies rely on Council protection. We can't just walk away." "No," Webb agreed. "But we can be ready for the truth when it comes." 3 days later, they received the first reports from the Kythera system. The space battle had gone exactly as planned. Council forces overwhelmed the primitive defensive fleet within hours. Ground operations were proceeding smoothly, with human forces leading the assault on the planet's major cities. But then something unexpected happened. Lisa's emergency transmission arrived without warning, her face appearing on the command center's main screen. Behind her, explosions lit up the alien sky in brilliant flashes of orange and red. Command, this is Captain Chen reporting from Cathara Prime. We have a significant problem. What's your status, Captain? Sarah stepped forward, her heart racing. The intel was wrong. Completely wrong. This isn't a military installation or a weapons facility. It's a refugee camp. Thousands of civilians from dozens of different species, all hiding from Council forces. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. That's impossible. Our intelligence clearly indicated, Mother, I'm looking at the evidence with my own eyes. These people aren't warriors. They're families, children, elderly, and they're all terrified of the Council. Webb grabbed Sarah's arm. Ask her if there are any ethereals among the refugees. Lisa, are there any species among the refugees that you don't recognize? Anyone claiming to be ethereal? The video feed flickered, and when it cleared, Lisa's expression had changed completely. How did you know? There's a group here calling themselves Ethereal Survivors. They've been trying to communicate with me telepathically. They're showing me things, Mother. Horrible things. What kind of things? Memories. Historical records. Evidence that the Council isn't what we think it is. Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper. They're showing me what really happened to the species we thought were extinct. The Council didn't defeat them in war. They were systematically exterminated after being tricked into joining the Alliance. The transmission cut to static, then returned with an emergency signal. Lisa's face was pale with terror. We're under attack by Council forces. Our own allies are firing on us because I refused to continue the bombardment. They're saying I've been compromised by enemy propaganda. Sarah grabbed the communications console. Lisa, get out of there. Take whoever you can and run. I can't abandon these people. The ethereals are uploading everything to my ship's computer. All their evidence, all their historical records. The galaxy needs to know the truth about what the Council really is. The transmission ended abruptly, replaced by an official Council communication. Chancellor Vextar's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. Admiral Chen, I regret to inform you that your daughter's unit has been compromised by hostile alien influences. Captain Chen appears to be suffering from some form of mental manipulation. We are dispatching additional forces to complete the mission and extract any surviving human personnel. Sarah stared at the screen in horror. You're going to kill her. We're going to save her, Vextar corrected. The Cathara are using psychic weapons to corrupt human minds. We've seen this before with other species. Your daughter is a victim, not a traitor. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah and Webb alone with the terrible truth. Everything they had believed about the Council, about humanity's place in the galaxy, had been a lie. And now Lisa was trapped on a world full of refugees, marked for death by the very organization humanity had sworn to serve. Webb broke the silence first. We have to warn Earth. If Lisa manages to get that evidence back, she won't make it back, Sarah said, her voice hollow. Vexatar will make sure of that. And even if she did, who would believe her? The Council has been humanity's savior for 50 years. But even as she spoke, Sarah was already planning. If the Council could lie about one mission, they could lie about everything. And if humanity was just another species being set up for extinction, then they needed to be ready for war. The greatest war in galactic history was about to begin, and humanity didn't even know it yet. Captain Lisa Chen's final transmission reached Earth exactly 18 hours before the Council's attack began. The message was brief, desperate, and contained enough evidence to shatter humanity's trust in their galactic allies forever. This is Captain Chen broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Her voice crackled through subspace static. The Council is not what they claim to be. They are slavers and killers who have destroyed hundreds of species. The data package attached to this transmission contains proof. Tell everyone. Trust no one from the Council. They're coming for us next. The transmission cut off abruptly, followed by what appeared to be weapons fire and explosions. Then silence. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the emergency session of Earth's High Command, watching as military leaders and government officials reviewed the evidence Lisa had died to deliver. The data was overwhelming. Detailed records of genocides, slave camps, biological experiments, and systematic extermination programs spanning thousands of years. "This can't be real," General Morrison said, his face pale as he scrolled through images of mass graves on dozens of worlds. "The Council has been our greatest ally. They gave us the stars. They gave us exactly what they gave every other species," Webb replied grimly. "Just enough technology to make us useful, just enough freedom to keep us compliant, and just enough military power to help them conquer the next batch of victims." Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the head of the table, her expression carved from stone. Her daughter was dead, killed by the very organization humanity had served faithfully for 50 years. "The question now is what we do about it." "We fight," said Colonel Rivera, commander of Earth's Home Defense Forces. "If they're coming for us, we give them a war they'll never forget." "With what?" General Morrison spread his hands helplessly. "They have technology centuries beyond ours. Their fleets number in the thousands. We have maybe 200 ships that could fight in space, and most of those use Council-designed systems." "Council systems with built-in weaknesses," Webb added. "According to Lisa's data, every piece of technology they've given us has hidden kill switches and sabotage protocols. They can shut down our ships, our power grids, our weapon systems at will." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had been handed the tools of their own destruction, gift-wrapped and delivered with smiles. Admiral Chen broke the silence. "Then we adapt. Humanity has always been good at making do with limited resources. We strip out every Council component we can find and replace it with human technology. We prepare for a siege." "Sarah, be realistic," Morrison said. "Even if we could retrofit our entire infrastructure in time, we're talking about fighting a galactic empire with a few hundred ships and the population of one star system." "Not one star system," Webb interrupted. "According to the ethereal records, there are other species in hiding. Survivors who've been fighting the Council in secret for generations. If we can contact them, coordinate with them." Alarms began blaring throughout the building before he could finish. Emergency lights bathed the conference room in red as communications officers rushed in with reports. "Admiral, we're detecting massive subspace distortions throughout the system," Lieutenant Hayes reported breathlessly. "Council fleet signatures incoming. At least 500 ships, including dreadnoughts." Admiral Chen was already moving toward the command center. "How long until they arrive?" 47 minutes. The next 3/4 of an hour passed in a blur of desperate activity. Earth's defense fleet scrambled to intercept the incoming armada, while engineers worked frantically to disable Council systems before they could be remotely activated. Evacuation protocols activated across the planet as civilians fled to underground shelters. Webb found himself in the underground command bunker, watching the tactical display as humanity prepared to face extinction. The Council fleet that emerged from hyperspace was larger than anything humans had ever seen. Hundreds of massive ships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons already charging for bombardment. "Incoming transmission from the Council flagship," the communications officer announced. Chancellor Vexitar's face appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features twisted in what might have been disappointment. "Admiral Chen, Dr. Webb, I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. Your species showed such promise." "You lying bastard," Sarah snarled. "We trusted you. We served you faithfully for 50 years. And you served us well," Vexitar replied calmly. "Human soldiers were remarkably effective at eliminating our enemies. Your adaptability and ruthlessness impressed even our generals, but every tool eventually outlives its usefulness. My daughter died bringing us the truth about your genocides. Your daughter was corrupted by terrorist propaganda. We tried to save her, but the ethereal mind virus had already taken hold. Such a waste." Vexitar's expression shifted to something resembling regret. "We gave humanity every opportunity to remain useful. Extended lifespans, advanced technology, an empire spanning dozens of worlds. All we asked in return was obedience." Webb stepped forward. "You asked us to help you murder entire civilizations. We asked you to help us maintain order in a chaotic galaxy. The weak species you call victims were obstacles to progress. Their elimination was necessary for the advancement of galactic civilization." "Whose civilization?" Admiral Chen demanded. "Yours? You've destroyed hundreds of species to build your empire." "Thousands, actually," Vexitar corrected with pride. "Each extinction brought us closer to perfect galactic order. Humanity could have been part of that perfection. But you chose to believe the lies of terrorists and traitors. Then the display showed Council ships moving into bombardment formation around Earth. Similar fleets were positioning themselves around every human colony, preparing for simultaneous destruction. You have one final chance, Vextar continued. Surrender now, and we will preserve a breeding population for our experiments. Your genetic adaptability has research value. Resist, and we will exterminate every human in the galaxy. Admiral Chen looked around the command center at the faces of her staff. She saw fear, anger, and determination in equal measure. These people were prepared to die fighting rather than live as slaves. Counteroffer, she said, turning back to the screen. Go to hell! Vextar's expression didn't change. Very well. Begin planetary bombardment. The Council attack began with the activation of kill switches in human technology. Power grids failed across Earth as Council-designed components shut down. Half of humanity's defense fleet went dead in space as their engines and weapon systems ceased to function. Cities went dark as fusion reactors designed with Council technology automatically triggered emergency shutdowns. But the sabotage wasn't complete. Human engineers had been suspicious enough to create backup systems and redundancies. Emergency power kicked in across the planet. Ships with purely human-designed systems remained operational. And in the underground factories that had been secretly converting human technology for months, the lights stayed on. They expected us to be helpless, Admiral Chen said, watching as Earth's remaining defenses engaged the Council fleet. They didn't count on human paranoia. The space battle was brutal and one-sided, but it wasn't the massacre Vextar had planned. Human ships fought with desperate fury, using tactics the Council had never seen before. Instead of fighting defensively, they immediately went on the attack, ramming Council vessels and self-destructing to take out larger ships. They're not trying to win, Webb realized, watching the tactical display. They're trying to hurt us as much as possible before they die. But as the hours passed, something unexpected began to happen. Reports flooded in from other human colonies under attack. The pattern was the same everywhere. Initial sabotage, overwhelming Council assault, but then fierce human resistance that inflicted far more damage than anticipated. On New Geneva, human colonists had somehow acquired weapons that were tearing through Council armor like paper. On Kepler Station, the entire population had vanished moments before the attack, leaving behind empty cities and booby traps that destroyed half the landing force. How is this possible? Vextar demanded during another transmission, his composed demeanor finally cracking. Your technology is inferior. Your numbers are insignificant. You should have been eliminated within hours. Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since her daughter's death. You made one critical mistake, Chancellor. You assumed we'd fight like every other species you've faced. But humans don't surrender when we're cornered. We get angry. And when we get angry, we stop thinking about survival and start thinking about revenge. Around Earth, the space battle continued to rage. Human ships kept launching from hidden bases, their crews knowing they were flying to their deaths but determined to make the Council pay for every mile of space. The planet's surface bristled with weapons that had been secretly constructed using reverse-engineered Council technology improved with human innovations, but it was the psychological impact that truly shattered Council expectations. They had faced desperate resistance before, but never anything like this. Human forces broadcast recordings of Council atrocities on all frequencies, turning their own client species against them. They used captured Council equipment to send 3 months after the initial Council attack, the galaxy learned what human vengeance truly meant. What had begun as humanity's desperate fight for survival had transformed into something far more terrifying. A systematic campaign of total extermination aimed at every Zephyrian in the known universe. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned warship Retribution, watching through the viewscreen as her fleet emerged from hyperspace above the Zephyrian colony of Velnash. The planet below had been home to 12 million Zephyrians and served as a major military shipyard for the Council fleet. All targets acquired, reported Commander Williams. Humanity's new fleet tactical officer. Orbital defense platforms are powering up. Enemy fleet moving to intercept. Begin operation, Chen ordered. The human fleet that attacked Velnash bore no resemblance to the desperate defenders who had fought above Earth 3 months earlier. These ships were larger, faster, and armed with weapons that made Council technology look primitive. In the weeks following the initial assault, human engineers had not only reverse-engineered every piece of Zephyrian equipment they could capture, but had improved upon it with innovations that should have taken decades to develop. How are they advancing so quickly? General Kexran asked Chancellor Vexitar as they watched the battle unfold from the Council command ship Dominion. Our scientists spent centuries developing warp core technology. The humans have somehow made it 30% more efficient in a matter of weeks. Vexitar's scales had lost their lustrous sheen in recent months. Dark circles under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights spent trying to understand how his perfect plan had gone so catastrophically wrong. They're adapting faster than any species we've ever encountered. Our own technology is being used against us more effectively than we ever used it ourselves. The space battle above Velnash was over within an hour. Human ships moved with coordinated precision that spoke of extensive combat experience gained through months of constant warfare. They targeted Zephyrian vessels with weapons specifically designed to penetrate Council shields and armor. Worse still, they had somehow developed countermeasures for every defensive system the Council possessed. But it was what happened next that truly demonstrated humanity's new approach to warfare. Instead of accepting the surrender of the remaining Zephyrian forces, human ships began systematically destroying every structure in the system. Orbital stations, mining platforms, communication relays, even civilian transports trying to evacuate non-combatants. Nothing was spared. Admiral Chen, came a transmission from the Zephyrian planetary governor. We surrender unconditionally. Please, there are civilians here. Families. Children. Chen's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every Zephyrian in the system could hear it. You showed no mercy to the Corvani children when you exterminated their species. You showed no mercy to the Deltari families when you turned them into slaves. You showed no mercy to the thousands of species you've destroyed over the millennia. Why should we show mercy to you? The planetary bombardment that followed was methodical and complete. Human forces didn't simply destroy military targets. They eliminated every trace of Zephyrian civilization on the planet. Cities, farms, industrial complexes, even historical monuments and cultural sites were reduced to ash and molten metal. Dr. Marcus Webb watched the destruction from the science vessel Discovery, his face grim as he monitored the biological warfare being deployed alongside conventional weapons. Atmospheric processors are releasing the tailored virus, he reported. Complete genetic targeting confirmed. It will only affect Zephyrian physiology. The virus had been one of humanity's first major innovations after learning the truth about the Council. Using captured Zephyrian genetic samples, human scientists had engineered a pathogen that was 100% fatal to Zephyrians, while being completely harmless to every other known species. It was elegant, efficient, and absolutely terrifying in its specificity. Time to planetary sterilization? Admiral Chen asked. 17 hours for complete atmospheric saturation, Webb replied. No Zephyrian life will survive on the surface after that. Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of star systems as humanity's war fleets swept through Zephyrian space like avenging angels. The speed of human expansion was unprecedented in galactic history. While the Council had spent months planning each campaign against weaker species, humanity was launching multiple simultaneous attacks across hundreds of light years. They're not just trying to defeat us, observed Council Admiral Thexford during an emergency strategy meeting. They're trying to erase us from existence. Every Zephyrian colony they capture is completely sterilized. They're not taking prisoners or establishing occupation forces. They're committing total genocide. Chancellor Vexitar studied the strategic display showing the rapid collapse of Zephyrian territory. Red zones marked systems that had fallen to human forces, and the red was spreading like a plague across the map. Perhaps we can negotiate. Offer them reparations, territorial concessions. They've rejected every attempt at communication, Thexavor interrupted. The humans have made their intentions clear. They want every Zephyrian dead. That's impossible. No species commits total genocide against another spacefaring civilization. The logistics alone. The humans aren't following conventional warfare patterns, Thexavor said grimly. They've somehow made contact with the remnants of every species we've ever conquered. The entire galaxy is turning against us. This was perhaps the most shocking development of the war. Species that had been thought extinct for centuries were emerging from hiding to join humanity's crusade. The ethereals provided psychic coordination that allowed human fleets to communicate instantaneously across vast distances. The surviving Corvani offered their expertise in ship construction, helping humans build vessels faster than should have been possible. The hidden Deltari colonies provided intelligence on Council movements and weaknesses, but it was humanity's psychological warfare that truly devastated Zephyrian morale. Human forces broadcast detailed evidence of Council atrocities to every species in the galaxy. They showed the true extent of Zephyrian genocide: the slave camps, the biological experiments, the systematic extermination of entire civilizations. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Council. Client species began rebelling across hundreds of worlds. Mercenary forces switched sides or simply abandoned their contracts. Even some Zephyrian colonies declared independence and begged humanity for protection. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," reported the communications officer aboard the Dominion. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen, but she was no longer the same person who had once served the Council faithfully. Her eyes held a cold fury that made even hardened Zephyrian warriors uncomfortable. "Chancellor Vextar," she said, her voice carrying across space with perfect clarity, "I wanted to personally inform you that we've just finished sterilizing your 19th colony world. Zektar Prime is now a dead rock, just like every other world that once hosted your murderous species. Admiral, surely we can reach some accommodation." "The time for accommodation ended when you tried to exterminate my species," Chen interrupted. "When you murdered my daughter, when you revealed the true extent of your crimes against every decent civilization in this galaxy." Vextar's composure finally cracked completely. "You can't destroy an entire species. The logistics are impossible. We have colonies scattered across thousands of star systems." Chen's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. "We're not in any hurry, Chancellor. Humanity has already proven we can adapt and improve faster than you can respond. We've turned your own technology against you more effectively than you ever used it. We've united every species you've wronged into a single coalition dedicated to your extinction. And most importantly, we've learned something that you never understood." "What?" "Genocide is only impossible if you're not completely committed to the task." "We are completely committed. Every human in the galaxy has sworn the same oath. No Zephyrian will be allowed to survive. No colony will be spared. No survivor will be permitted to rebuild. Your species chose to be galactic parasites. We're going to cure the galaxy of that disease permanently." The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian command staff in stunned silence. Outside the viewports, they could see human ships moving through the system like wolves hunting prey. The hunters had become the hunted, and there would be no escape. "How many colonies do we have left?" Vextar asked quietly. 47 confirmed, Thexvor replied. "But the humans are attacking faster than we can reinforce. At current rates of loss, we have perhaps 6 months before we're extinct," Vextar finished. "A species that ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, wiped out by mammals who didn't even have warp drive a century ago." "Sir, there might be one option," suggested a younger officer. "If we could evacuate the core population to the deep space installations beyond the galactic rim." "No." Vextar's voice carried the weight of absolute defeat. "The humans have made contact with species we thought extinct for millennia. They have resources and intelligence networks we never knew existed. There is nowhere in this galaxy we can hide from them." He turned back to the tactical display, watching as another Zephyrian world fell to human force. The Zephyrian homeworld of Zephyr Prime had stood unconquered for 12,000 years. Its massive orbital defense platforms could destroy entire fleets. Its surface was protected by energy shields that could withstand the impact of asteroids. Its underground cities extended deep into the planet's core, designed to survive any assault. None of that mattered when humanity arrived. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as the largest human fleet ever assembled dropped out of hyperspace around the Zephyrian homeworld. 3,000 ships filled the void, representing not just humanity but every species that had suffered under Zephyrian rule. The fleet was a testament to 5 years of total war that had systematically erased the Zephyrian Empire from existence. "Final system scan complete," reported Dr. Marcus Webb from his position at the science station. "Population approximately 800 million Zephyrians. No other species detected. This is their last stronghold. Any response to our surrender demands?" "The same as always," Webb replied. "They're requesting negotiations, offering territory, technology, anything we want in exchange for allowing their species to survive." Chen studied the tactical display showing the homeworld's defenses. Even after 5 years of war, the Zephyrians still possessed formidable military capabilities. Their orbital platforms mounted weapons that could crack moons. Their planetary shields had never been breached by any enemy force, but humanity had learned not to attack Zephyrian strengths directly. They had developed something far more effective. "Begin Phase 1, Chen ordered. Across the human fleet, specialized ships began broadcasting on frequencies that penetrated every communication system on Zephyr Prime. The signals weren't weapons or military commands. They were testimonials from the survivors of Zephyrian genocide. The voice of an elderly Corvani female filled every speaker on the planet. "My name was Velara. I watched the Zephyrians murder my children and force me to work in their breeding facilities. For 60 years I survived in hiding, waiting for someone to make them pay for their crimes." Another voice followed, this one from a young Deltari male. "They told my people that joining the council would bring prosperity. Instead, they enslaved us and used our bodies for their experiments. 90% of my species died in their laboratories." The testimonials continued for hours, hundreds of voices from dozens of species, each one describing Zephyrian atrocities in heartbreaking detail. Every genocide, every slave camp, every biological experiment was laid bare for the Zephyrian population to hear. "Turn it off," Chancellor Vextar screamed at his communication staff. "Block the signals." "We can't, sir. They're using our own communication networks against us. The signals are embedded in every frequency we use for planetary coordination." On the surface of Zephyr Prime, Zephyrian civilians listened in growing horror as the true extent of their government's crimes was revealed. Many had known about the wars of conquest, but the Council had always presented them as necessary conflicts against aggressive species. They had never known about the systematic extermination programs, the torture facilities, the deliberate genocide of entire civilizations. Phase 2, Admiral Chen announced. Human ships began releasing clouds of microscopic probes throughout the Zephyrian system. The probes were too small to be targeted by defensive systems, but they carried detailed recordings of every Zephyrian war crime humanity had documented. They projected holographic displays visible from the planet's surface, showing images of mass graves, slave camps, and execution facilities. But it was Phase 3 that broke Zephyrian resistance completely. Activating the beacon, Webb announced. A single human ship at the center of the fleet began broadcasting a signal that had been 5 years in the making. The signal reached out across the galaxy, touching every world that had once hosted intelligent life. On planets that had been dead for centuries, ancient automated systems responded to the call. Across Zephyr Prime, holographic projectors that the Zephyrians didn't even know existed began activating. These were memorial systems built by the species the Zephyrians had destroyed, designed to preserve the memory of their civilizations for future generations. The sky above every Zephyrian city filled with images of the dead. Billions of faces from hundreds of species stared down at their killers. The voices of the extinct spoke in languages that hadn't been heard for millennia, each one offering the same message. "We are not forgotten. Justice comes." The psychological impact was devastating. Across Zephyr Prime, Zephyrian military units began surrendering. Civilians fled underground or tried to escape the planet in any available spacecraft. The government's communication networks collapsed as officials either surrendered or committed suicide rather than face humanity's justice. Incoming transmission from the planetary surface, the communications officer reported. Chancellor Vextar appeared on the main screen, but he was no longer the proud leader who had once threatened to exterminate humanity. His scales had turned gray with stress, and his eyes held the hollow look of complete defeat. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we surrender unconditionally. We accept full responsibility for our crimes. We only ask that you allow some of our people to survive. Let our children live. They weren't responsible for the decisions of their ancestors." Chen's expression didn't change. "Did you allow the children of the Corvani to live? Did you spare the younglings of the Deltari? Did you show mercy to any of the infant species you exterminated?" "No," Vextar admitted. "We showed no mercy." "Then why should we show you what you never gave others?" "Because you're better than we are," Vextar said desperately. "You've proven that humanity is capable of justice and righteousness. Don't become the monsters we were." Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment, considering the Zephyrian leader's words. Around her, the bridge crew waited to hear whether humanity would choose mercy or complete the genocide they had sworn to accomplish. "You're right," she said finally. "We are better than you. We're so much better that we're going to give you exactly what you gave every other species in this galaxy: complete and total extinction." The orbital bombardment began immediately. Human ships unleashed weapons specifically designed to penetrate the planet's shields and defensive systems. But these weren't random attacks meant to cause terror. Every shot was precisely targeted to eliminate Zephyrian population centers while preserving the memorial sites built by their victims. As the bombardment continued, human ground forces landed on the planet's surface, but they weren't there to occupy territory or capture resources. They had come to witness the end of the Zephyrian species, and to ensure that no survivors could escape to rebuild. Dr. Webb watched the final phase of the operation from the Discovery's observation deck. Human soldiers moved through the ruins of Zephyrian cities, not as conquerors but as investigators. They documented everything they found, preserving evidence of Zephyrian crimes for future generations to study. "It's almost over," he said to Admiral Chen, who had joined him at the viewport. "No," Chen replied, watching as the last Zephyrian strongholds fell to human forces. "This is just the beginning. We've eliminated the Zephyrians, but the galaxy is still full of species traumatized by thousands of years of oppression. We have work to do." "What kind of work?" "Rebuilding. The Zephyrians destroyed so many civilizations that entire regions of space are empty. We need to help the survivors rebuild their societies. We need to establish new governments based on equality and cooperation, rather than domination and exploitation." 3 days later, the last Zephyrian died on the steps of their ancient capital building. The species that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years simply ceased to exist, erased as completely as they had erased so many others. But humanity's work was far from finished. Ships carrying human administrators and aid workers spread across the former Zephyrian Empire, helping liberated species establish new governments and rebuild their shattered worlds. The human military became a peacekeeping force dedicated to preventing any species from following the Zephyrian path of conquest and genocide. Years later, Admiral Chen walked through the memorial garden that had been built on the ruins of the Zephyrian capital. Each section honored a different species that had been destroyed by Zephyrian aggression. Statues, monuments, and living memorials covered hundreds of acres, ensuring that the dead would never be forgotten. A young human cadet approached her as she paused, before the monument to the Corvani children, who had died in Zephyrian laboratories. "Admiral," the cadet said hesitantly, "some people are saying we went too far, that we became no better than the Zephyrians when we exterminated their entire species." Chen looked at the memorial wall covered with the names of murdered children, each one a life cut short by Zephyrian cruelty. "Cadet, we gave the Zephyrians every opportunity to choose a different path. We offered them membership in a galactic community based on equality and mutual respect. They chose genocide instead. But complete extinction was justice," Chen interrupted firmly. "The Zephyrians spent 10,000 years proving that they were incapable of coexisting peacefully with other species. They were a disease that infected the galaxy, and we cured it.